The final stage is set between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers for the finals. But what can the St. Louis Blues do to get back there? I'll let you know coming up here on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked on Blues. I am your host of Locked on Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here, a part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked on Blues, I will be talking about how the Panthers and the Oilers are in the Stanley Cup Finals, who to cheer for, and how the Blues can get back there, okay? I'm going to also be talking about something that happened 5 years ago with a very historic Game 4. If you know, you know. And do we feel better about the end of this past season? So, a lot to dive into today, a lot of questions that I want you to answer. And most importantly, I hope that this time of the year does bring up some positive memories of 5 years ago. Before I go any further, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. So the Stanley Cup Finals are officially set. Now, the game won't begin until next Saturday just due to the break. And obviously, you have to plan for the what ifs, game sevens hypothetically. But it is between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. And I believe that this is the first time in 18 years that the Oilers are in a final. So good for them. For Florida, they were most recently in the finals last season when they lost to the VGK. And this season, they have a guy who I think we all know played very well in the finals for us, a guy that we love here in St. Louis, and that is Vladimir Tarasenko. And he actually did have the game-winning goal for the Panthers. I got them up 2-0, and then the Rangers ended up scoring one goal, but essentially got them that game-winning goal. And who doesn't love Vladdy, right? So obviously, if you're a Blues fan, it's very easy. You want to cheer for Vladimir Tarasenko and the Florida Panthers. I get it. The Oilers, I mean, it's, McDavid, like that's cool and all, but there's really not much to them that makes me super excited for them. And when I look at games like this, and I said this all along, I want to cheer for our former guys. And last year with the VGK, I know that we hate the Golden Knights, but I was happy for Petro. And obviously, um, he said a lot of very kind things about, the Blues when he won, and obviously Ivan as well. But I have to cheer for Vladimir Tarasenko, and I know a lot of you do not want him back on the Blues. I asked you that question. I said, "How would you feel if we, got him back?" And a bunch of you were like, "No, no way." I still think that he is a difference maker on a team. I know price is always a factor, not Carey Price, but the price that it costs to get him. Ha ha, hockey joke. But I do think that when you look at the finals, you have two competitive teams that are going to be absolutely entertaining. And, I was actually watching a lot of videos today on YouTube and, just all over. I'm always watching like hockey compilations. And I still think our Stanley Cup final with us and the Bruins was so entertaining. Obviously, it went to a game 7. And whenever any series goes to a game 7, it is a beaut because it's not a blowout. Blowouts are boring. I don't like sweeps. Sure, in the first round, if a sweep happens, it is what it is. But I don't want it to go to 4 or 5 games in the finals. I want the dramatics. I want the theatrics. And I think that both of these teams, the Panthers and Oilers, can do that. But going back to the Blues, because that's the team that I care about, when you looked at our series, and I'll get into this in a little bit too, it just was entertaining. With one game, you really thought the Bruins were going to have the whole thing. And then the next game, you're like, oh no, St. Louis is coming to life. You truly didn't know who was going to win the whole thing until that game 7. And I know you're thinking, Hale, isn't that how all game 7s work? Yes and no. There could be a team that's the better team on the ice, even though they may not score or they let up a goal. That's possible, but the control in our series really went back and forth. And I think that's what made the win so special. And, I look at these finals now and I'm finally excited. I'm finally ready to be entertained. I think last year we were all rooting against Vegas. Sorry, but there is no way you were going to get me to root for an expansion team that hasn't been around for hardly any time to win their first Stanley Cup. While it is cool, you had two teams that could have won the cup for their first time in franchise history with the Panthers and the Knights last year. I think everyone just really wanted the Panthers to win. And now this year, since I have Vladdy, it gives me even more reason to root for them. And there is a part of me that's like, oh, well, wouldn't it be nice to root for a Canadian team because they haven't won it since like 1993? I get that, but no. I'm sorry. I'm going to root for my guy to win another cup. And Tarasenko is one of my favorite players, and I don't think that's ever going to change. So, yeah. Let me know what you think. Is that okay to root for a team because of one player that used to be on your team? Now, anyways, I said, what do the Blues need to do to get back to the Stanley Cup finals or the playoffs? Okay, let's start like a little bit lower, the playoffs. Well, the one thing I'm noticing about the Florida Panthers is even though during the regular season, people might have thought they struggled a little bit, they really didn't. And they have such an aggressive defense. And their defense, I mean, I know that they're scoring, obviously, uh, without a doubt. I mean, Sam Bennett is absolutely fire. But when you look at the Panthers defense, you truly see structure. And that is something that the Blues are missing. Do I think the Blues can get back to that? Absolutely. But right now, the Blues' defense is just so weak. Okay. And I think for the Blues, and when you look at any team that missed the playoffs, you have to really take a good look at your team and say, okay, is this going to work when it comes to the postseason? Because in the postseason, yes, you do get that extra bit of like adrenaline. I don't know how to explain it. Playoff hockey is different than regular season hockey, right? So while somebody might be like super good in the regular season, they could be superstars when it comes to the postseason. And I think that's what makes it so special. I mean, you have to look too at Gustav Forsling, one of my favorites on the Panthers. I mean, again, he is unbelievable. You have Ekman Larson, who's been outstanding, Kulikov, like, you have to look at these players, and of course, and this is a player that I said the Blues should try to go after is Brandon Montour. He will be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. You have to go after guys like him. I mean, the defense is loaded, and I don't care what anybody says, Ekblad. All of these guys, and you're going to tell me that they compare to the St. Louis Blues? No, they do not at all. And I feel bad, right? Because when I compare the Blues to some of these other teams, there is just such a huge difference in talent. And that's what the Blues need to do. It's the defense. I'm going to say it. It is the defense. This team can score. The Blues are able to score goals. Maybe not against the Sharks or sometimes the Blackhawks or sometimes the Islanders. But when you look at the results of most of the Blues games, it's not because they're not scoring. It is because their defense is getting outplayed by the opposing team's offense. And that's why I do have concerns when it comes to guys like a Torrey Krug. Oh, hello, Stella. My cat has joined. Do you have anything to say about the Blues' defense? She says no comment because it sucks. But I look at Matthew Kessel and he gives me excitement because he's, fresh legs out on the ice. Tyler Tucker too. But you can't rely on those guys, and I hate to be this way, to truly fix the defense. I mean, obviously we have Colton Parayko, who is one of the best, and we are so lucky to have him. But if you're comparing the St. Louis Blues' defense to the Florida Panthers, who literally have their biggest strength on defense with all the players I just named, Forsling, you can't tell me that it adds up. I'm sorry, Nick Leddy, but it's not the same, okay? Jay Folk, it's not the same. It's not the same, Scott Perunovich. It's not the same. So, yes, when you do compare a team that is in the finals, you can tell there is a huge difference. Now, when it comes to goalies, I think Binnington is still one of the best goalies in the NHL, top 5 goalie, without a doubt. I think he's better than Skinner. I know he's better than Skinner. Now, Bobrovsky, I mean, he's been absolutely lights out. I can't compare Binnington with him, but I can say they are in the same category with being lights out. So I can't rank. I got so excited I exited it out, but I cannot rank Bob with him. Did you guys see that? I got so excited I just like literally exited. I'm sorry for the little bit of a delay here on Locked On Blues. But anyways, when it comes to Edmonton, because I want to talk about the Oilers really fast before I talk about something else that makes me extremely happy. You know, the Oilers, they're huge superstars, as we know, is Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid. And you might be thinking, hell, is that all they have? Well, no, and they have other players too. I mean, they have I'm always laughing because he's always in drama, but they have Kane, they have Zach Hyman that's been really well. Um, they have a lot of good players. I mean, Nugent Hopkins, who's been around forever. Speaking of being around forever, Corey Perry. So they have a lot of guys that have that kind of, ground, if that makes sense. And that's their offense, right? Their forwards, the wingers. Defense, I mean, I really like Nurse a lot. I think Hughes played well. Um, but when you look at the Oilers, they have a different story where all their big strengths are all in their, forward. So I think when you compare that to the Blues, I think the Blues are kind of more like the Oilers in that sense, where the biggest strengths that we have are also our forwards, centers, wingers, you name it. So interesting comparison between the two teams. And I like to kind of break that down as the series goes on because there's so much to talk about when it comes to comparing all of these teams with the Blues and how the Blues can get back there. So obviously, I want to get back there. So, I want to talk to you about my friends over at eBay Motors. Okay. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only. Available to U.S. customers. So, hello, St. Louis. Now, something happened today. Um, honestly, that made me a little upset. Happy in a nostalgic kind of way where I'm like, oh, this is so happy. Upset in the whole, oh, geez, okay. Well, time does go by fast. And it has to do with the St. Louis Blues and the Boston Bruins. And I want to preference this by saying that 5 years ago to me does feel like a long time ago. It feels a lot longer than maybe you think it is, but it does feel like quite a while ago. And I put this out on our Twitter, by the way, at Locked On Blues, because it was truly one of those games where it felt like magic, right? So, 4 years ago today, the St. Louis Blues defeated the Boston Bruins at home for the first time in franchise history. The Blues winning a home game 4-2. And it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it gets me a little upset, right? Because the Blues won on the road quite a bit. So it was nice to have a win here at Enterprise. Obviously, the way that the series went, that was the only win at all. Because let's let's go explain. The NHL does a thing where it drives me absolutely insane if you're the away team. Not that it's like I get it's the rules, it just sucks, but you obviously have the 2 games on home ice. So it was the 2 at Boston, Then it was the 2 at, here in St. Louis. So we won that game 4. Then we went back to Boston, right? And we were up in the series. And then we came back home. We lost at home, which was really defeating. And then we won in Boston on that game 7. But like, imagine if we went on home ice the whole thing. And I think about that quite a bit, right? But it was so cool. The first time in franchise history, the Blues won a Stanley Cup Finals game at home. Like, that is so cool. Such a cool memory. And I think at the end of the day, and I was looking for the tweet that I had, because on Lockdown Blues, I found this really great photo today um, of that game, of the final moments of that game. And it was between, obviously, our boy, Ryan O'Reilly, just, up against the glass, arms up. And I wish I could show it on here, but just the raw emotion. I remember that game too. And knowing that we tied the series, there's a sense of, okay, we could win this. It could be us. And that was, I think, the first time in this series where I truly felt like we could win the cup. It was such a huge win. And I want to just take us back to that moment because here on Lockdown Blues, well, yes, we can talk about, the future of the team, which is something we're always going to talk about. 5 years just seems like a special anniversary, right? Um, and for me at least, I didn't get to do this last year. I came on literally the day before we won Blues Day. So I like to be able to take historic looks back as to, our wins. And just for the sake of reminiscing on the past, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that game with the scoring summary because I rewatched the game today, obviously. And I just want to let you know that this is something I want to relive here on the podcast. So I don't care. I'm going to do it. So within the first 43 seconds, if you remember, Ryan O'Reilly was able to get an even strength goal. And so 43 seconds through the first period, the Blues, remember, they took that early lead. Oh my God. Then Charlie oh my God, Coyle, if I can say his name, scored for the Bruins 13 minutes in. A couple minutes later, our boy, Vladimir Tarasenko, was able to score an even strength goal, giving the Blues a 2-1 lead after the first period. In the second period, when I was watching this, I got so annoyed because Carlo was able to get a shorthanded goal for the Bruins. So then it was 2-2. Then in the third period, 10 minutes in, it was so intense. I remember watching this game too with my dad, and I'm like, Dad, this is intense. Ryan O'Reilly was able to get an even strength goal, giving the Blues a 3-2 lead. And then our now captain, Braden Shen, was able to give the Blues that 4-2 victory with an empty netter. So I just wanted to take you back down memory lane because that game was just so unreal. I was on edge the whole time. Like, we started off the game on such a good note, and then that second period, that shorty happened. But I remember when Shenny got that empty netter, and I just felt like a sense of relief because I'm like, okay, for the next minute and a half, I don't feel like I'm going to throw up while watching this game. So I just wanted to reminisce on some positive memories that I've had 5 years ago. That's crazy. All right, time to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So yeah, definitely take the Panthers money line when it comes to the Stanley Cup Finals. Like, for Vladdy. For Vladdy is wild considering that he's not even on our team anymore. But for Vladdy. All right. It's been a little while. And I haven't talked really about, how the season ended. And I feel like it's appropriate now to kind of say, I feel a little bit better about how the season ended. A little bit, not a lot. Obviously, it sucks that we're not in the playoffs. And there's no way to go around it without being honest. Yeah, it sucks. but I feel a little bit better now because I saw a lot of positives about the season. I saw Jordan Bennington having a stellar season in net. I saw Joel Hofer improve drastically. There was a lot of positives with our guys up front, okay? Like a Robert Thomas, who was phenomenal. You had Jake Neighbors, great rookie season. And then if you look at defense, I was really proud of Matthew Kessel, Tyler Tucker, and Colton Parayko. Block shots. But other than that, I mean, I guess Rosie too. I mean, as a whole, I'm disappointed with how the season ended. I feel better due to the individual players that I have mentioned and how they performed. Granted, yes, this is a team sport, so I understand. Hale, you need to judge it as a team. And I get that. But I think when you truly evaluate every little thing about this season, there was a lot going against the Blues, which was not the Blues' fault. You went into the season already being at a disadvantage due to the awful, awful, horrendous, disgraceful offseason the Blues had last offseason due to basically no moves by Dougie A except getting back Oscar Sundquist and picking up Kevin Hayes. Other than that, it sucked. That sucks. Like, I'm sorry, but like it wasn't good enough. And we all knew that the defense needed work done to it. We all knew that we needed to bring in somebody that was going to really help the defense. And that didn't get done. I think at the end of the day, if instead of bringing in like Kevin Hayes, you brought in a player that was solid on defense, a good two-way defenseman. Heck, I would take a one-way defenseman if that's even a term. I would take a guy that's just good on defense. Maybe we would be looking at a playoff team. I know. There was still a lot that had to be done in order to get to the playoffs, but they're really a couple points away. So it's not too crazy to say, hey, maybe if you just brought in somebody that could have helped up, helped the second defensive pair. You know what I'm saying? Just something. It just seems to me like there was more that could have been done. I mean, if you want to talk about defenseman of the year, you could really say Colton Parayko and Jordan Bennington because Benner really carried the defense. I already told you, I think it was like 12 games that if it wasn't for Bennington, they would have lost. And Bennington is one of those goalies that is so clutch and nobody realizes it because of the trash defense that we have. I feel like if you put Benner behind one of the best blue lines in the NHL, or even I would take top 15 at this point, you would see a huge difference in the amount of respect people have for him. And I think that people do have respect for him. I just think it gets overshadowed by some of these other players, right? I mean, you look at the Rangers. I know they just got eliminated, but you look at Shesterkin, and people seem to have the utmost respect for him. And I get it; he's good, and I'm not denying that. But it was because, well, besides the series against the Panthers, he had a good defense. He had that protection. No one's really saying that about Skinner, to be honest. So I'm like, okay, like it's fine. But even Jake Ottinger with the Dallas Stars, I mean, the Stars really did fall apart. I had them winning the whole thing too, which was crazy. I said that back in August, so I was close. But this is the first time in 3 years that I was wrong about who was going to win the Stanley Cup, which is kind of annoying for my ego, but it is what it is. But people have nothing but respect for Ottinger. You look at, Sergei Bobrovsky for the Panthers. Again, I mean, he earned it, but he's a goalie that every single person loves. And I get it. He's a good goalie and he is clutch. You look at Marc-Andre Fleury, people have nothing but respect for him. No, I'm not saying with the VGK or the Wild, but when he was at the Penguins. There are certain goalies in the NHL that are actively playing that have the respect of everybody in the league, not just their team, but everybody that's a hockey fan. Do I think Bennington has that? I don't know. And the thing about Benner, and this is the problem, his rookie season, he won the Stanley Cup. And I know what you're thinking, Hale, isn't that a good thing? No, it is. But it sets the expectations really high for him going forward. So again, it's kind of like, Coach Berube. He came in and won the Stanley Cup. What else can you do? Get back there again? Like, it's so difficult, I think, for people to understand how hard it is, especially in hockey out of all sports, to get to the finals. Every other sport is not as difficult in the playoffs as it is for hockey. Hockey has the hardest playoffs. That's why it means more when a team wins in hockey because, in baseball, even, the NBA, their whole seating thing is just weird. But, in baseball and, football only has one game so per round. So it's not like a series. So I guess I guess you can judge the difficulty because it's like do or die. But, baseball, they don't have, best out of seven the entire time, right? Hockey, you do. And even when it's the first round, you are still playing like it's the finals. It is insane how physical of a game hockey is. I think hockey is more of a physical game than football. Hockey is more physical than football. Hockey is more intense than baseball. Hockey takes more skill than basketball. And hockey has a better ending than any of the teams I just mentioned. And if you don't agree with me, then go back and rewatch some hockey games and tell me how that compares to any other sport because it doesn't. I'm sorry. I'm just saying it how it is. So for the Blues and why I feel better about the season, it's because I saw our guys get back to themselves for the ones that weren't. I feel optimistic for the future. I'm still disappointed greatly about how the season ended. But at the end of the day, the Blues got to keep moving along. They got to focus on being better, playing better, drafting well, making good moves during free agency, maybe some trades. All I know is that you cannot be lackadaisical in this offseason and expect good results come the following season. So, again, St. Louis, I want to know what your thought is. How do you feel about the way that this season ended? Are you disappointed? Are you kind of coming to terms that they were kind of doomed from the start? Also, let me know who you have winning the Stanley Cup. I'm going to say now Panthers in 6. Who do you have and how many games do you think it's going to take them? Secretly, though, I'm hoping for a game 7 double OT. I'm always going to hope for a game 7 double OT. I don't know why double OT too. I feel like that's like the most random thing, double OT, but hey, it works for me. So maybe it works for you. I will talk to you tomorrow. It's going to be a busy week of a lot of good hockey conversation. So make sure you subscribe, join the fun here on the Locked On Blues YouTube channel. And I will talk to you tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.